Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sports Table Talk. I'm Ryan Blake, joined by Jack Stankey and Sam Levine, and boy, do we have a loaded day with sports news. We're going to start today with college football. The Pac-12 and Big Ten officially canceled their seasons, as saying that they are trying to delay it into the spring. But the Big 12 did say that they are committed to play. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think
really,
that's crazy, personally. I mean, I think either everyone be on the same page or just cancel the season altogether. You can't have the Big 12 playing and the Pac-12 and Big 10 not playing. I mean, what are we going to do when the college football playoff comes around and, we only have two divisions playing and, some of the best teams in college football aren't even having a shot of playing in the national championship, especially for guys like, Justin Fields, who wanted to get drafted this year from Ohio State. What is he going to do? Not play in the national championship when, he's one of the favorites to make it? I mean, come on, either cancel it altogether or don't.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's a lack of, leadership on the NCAA's part, but I feel like it's also a lack of communication and unity between all of the conferences because it's not only the Big 12 that we've seen committed to play. We've also seen the SEC. They haven't really committed to anything yet, but they've said that they plan and they hope to really get out a fall football season. So there's still some uncertainty there. We really don't know what's going on with the ACC right now, but we can expect them to, I assume, cancel relatively soon because they did follow the Pac-12 and Big Ten when they moved to non-conference. So really, if it's only the Big 12 and the SEC as the Power 5 conferences, I mean, all integrity of competition in college football goes down the drain. We've already seen also some minor conferences like the Sun Belt plan to play in the fall. They've announced that they're going to play. And then another minor conference like the Mountain West has canceled. So it's not only with the Power 5 conferences. We've seen a lot of divide throughout the entire Division I in college football.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And then when it just comes to the NCAA, I just feel like they're just not all together on this one decision. It really is just still completely divided. And when it comes down to it, you just got to make one executive decision. Is there college football this year or is there no college football? You can't have these conferences splitting up. We will play, we won't play. Big 12 saying that they will play. It just comes down to it. I don't think there could be college football in 2020. I just don't.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and you see these players like some like Trevor Lawrence are tweeting out they're using the hashtag we want to play. And, we've seen Justin Fields tweet out SMH standing for shaking my head. Obviously, that shows he wants to play. But we've also seen major stars on the same level as those guys like Micah Parsons, Gregory Rousseau, Rashad Bateman already opt out of the season. So it's not only that there's a divide with the teams, the conferences, there's a divide in the players. And with college football, it's a lot of chaos right now. I feel like nobody really knows how to get this going, how to make it work. So I just feel that the best way to go about it is to cancel it, maybe see if you can delay it to the spring. But, I mean, I don't think college football works in 2020.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, to quote the director of athletics at Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez, he said last night on SportsCenter that, he feels hollow that the season won't happen. You can't have the Big 12 playing when you have some of the best teams in college football in the Big 10, not playing, especially his team at Wisconsin. They had a shot this year. So he feels hollow that the season will almost be empty and, not meaningful if the, level of competition isn't completely there.
Right,
Yeah,
and imagine being just like maybe a junior and you were moving into a bigger role at your school. You got a scholarship and now you have no opportunity to go and play. So you have to see how it plays out. But I mean, I know health and safety comes first, but that is really tough. That it's tough to live with.
exactly. Trevor Lawrence, I don't think they have safety first. I mean, when it comes to the fall football season, I just don't think it's going to be safe to play. You see Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh coming out saying that we want a season. You just see it's all these coaches and players that just want to play, and then you've just got to go to the doctors. You've got to go to the leaders in college football and just have them make the decision. which I just don't think it could be played. I mean, you see the struggles with baseball, as we mentioned yesterday, with the no bubble format. You can't have a bubble in college football. It's very difficult with the students, maybe virtual learning, but it'd still be very tough to keep them all in one spot for a significant amount of time. I mean, they're college kids. I mean, they want to go out, they want to have fun, but you really can't keep them disciplined like that for an entire season. I just don't think it could be done.
Yeah, I think what Sam said really sums it up nicely. I mean, Jerry Scott, the Pac-12 commissioner, who had a big factor in the playing out of the decision to cancel the Pac-12 season, he said it's all about the student athletes, and that's someone that I think the commissioners of the other leagues really have to, look upon as a role model for them to make those decisions. Because if players get sick and God forbid players die, now they're going to have an issue. Now the NCAA is going to be embarrassed, on a national stage. It's going to be something that we've never seen before. Colleges already have controversy. It's throughout this whole pandemic, they're thinking about shutting down Greek life, like sororities and fraternities. You can't have more controversy surrounding colleges, especially some of the most money-making, that happens at colleges is because of the college sports.
Right. And you mentioned the Pac-12 commissioner doing a great job saying he's been focused on student health the whole time. And, that's what came down to his final decision. However, I feel like a lot of other adults in this situation haven't really handled it with the same care. We've seen Nebraska's leadership say that they are still committed to playing football, and they might even want to have fans, which that is just insane to me. I don't even understand where you can get that from. And also, we've seen the Purdue head coach say they really want to badly play football, and they will make sure that they can do whatever it takes to accomplish that goal. And it's just a lot of opinions and views have come into play here. And really, I don't want to say nobody, because it's not nobody, but very few people are on exactly the same page on what needs to happen here, because there are so many variables that go into making about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I just feel like everybody's so confused to what's going on. I mean, you said Nebraska, like they're just there's uneducated decision making going around right now, and you can't have like colleges like Nebraska making the decisions. And I just feel like when it comes right down to it, to sum it all up, it's just a mess. It's really just a huge mess for college football. Again, I mentioned yesterday there should have been protocols, there should have been ideas for ways to make this possibly work. I mean, I get if you came out with an entire protocol list and the virus had other ideas and you had to shut it down, but they're completely caught off guard. I gotta say, they did a horrible job. It's a complete mess.
Yeah, Nebraska wants to play so that they can charge $200 for a beer in a top row seat. You can't do that. I get that you want to have fans so that you make them more money off it, but you have to cancel the season. Not only are you going to have your players getting sick, you're going to have your fans getting sick, you're going to have your staff getting sick, and then all of a sudden your school's shut down, until January. Several colleges already are going to send their students home in around Thanksgiving. I know Wisconsin, for example, students are going back soon, but they're going to go home during Thanksgiving so that if a second wave comes around for COVID, which, a lot of experts are predicting will happen, with the winter, heat kills. They said the heat killed the virus, and, it kind of came out true. The virus numbers went down a little bit during the summer. But, if it upticks again during the winter, then it's going to be a problem if college athletes are still playing.
Oh, and you make a great point there. It's absolutely despicable that these teams are focusing on, the money aspect of it. These are human lives. These are people who just left their parents' homes. They are just out of adolescence. And we're talking about putting them in harm's way for making some money. I mean, I understand it's a lot of money, but I mean, health and safety has to come first, especially when we are talking about 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds. It's that health and safety just has to be the number one priority.
Absolutely. And then when it comes to tweets with like Trevor Lawrence, I'm just sorry. Like if God forbid he had a family member pass away due to this virus, I really think he would be saying something different than, well, it has to be done. We have to play. Because it all comes down to safety first, as you guys have mentioned throughout this entire thing. It's safety, safety, safety. And there's no safety measures being taken, and that's just leaving them to just cancel the season. Because
Yeah,
it's
there's
not
a
going to
lot
be,
of,
you're not going to pack 50,000 people into a stadium. And
yeah,
there's no protocol yet saying that that's not even going to happen. So it just comes to these conferences saying, oh, we're caught off guard. There's nothing to do. We have no chance to play. We're not going to pack a stadium. We're not going to have a bunch of fans selling tickets. It's done. We're completely lost, and it's just got to go.
yeah, and quite honestly, there's just a lot of things that are more important than football. And obviously, the health and safety of people is just more important. And we need to take into account that factor. And I feel like a lot of people might not be doing that. And Trevor Lawrence, who I assume has his family and his friends, haven't really felt the impact of this virus. And I can understand that he wants to go back because he hasn't seen firsthand what the virus can do. So I understand that, but at the same time, he has to understand that around the world, and especially in this country, it is a big thing that is affecting most people's families, and people can die from this. It is not something that should be taken lightly.
Yeah, I'm just really nervous that us as a sports world community are going to take returning to play for granted. I mean, we got very lucky as sports fans to have the NBA and the AHL and the MLB return. We're lucky that football is still on pace to return. But, if sports are returning like college football and they don't have the right protocols and they get shut down, then the rest of it's going to shut down too. So, I think that people are taking it for granted that we have these bubbles in Orlando and up in Canada for hockey and basketball to play. Just be grateful. Be grateful that we're watching, playoff hockey from noon to midnight. We had a 5 overtime game last night. Be grateful that you could sit there for 6 hours to watch the Blue Jackets play the Lightning in a 5 overtime game. Don't push it too far. And I really, really hope that college football makes the right decision here. A lot of them, the other ones, cancel. The Big 12 hops on board and they cancel the season for good. Don't even play it in the spring. 2021 college football, sure, make it the best season ever. But 2020 college football is a done for now.
Exactly. And as Jack said, just don't take it for granted. I mean, we're sitting there in late March watching regular season Met games from 1966. I mean, just be happy that it's all back. As Jack said, I mean, you can't take it for granted. It's really just special to have sports back at all right now. And I mean, it's rough that college football doesn't have the protocol out, but there'll be stuff to watch now. Don't worry about that.
And if people are nervous that, the upperclassmen aren't going to get a chance, if you're an upperclassman and you're good enough to get drafted, you're still going to get drafted. Joe Burrow, I understand what happened with him. His success story was incredible, transferring from Ohio State down to LSU and having probably the greatest college football quarterback season of all time. Yes, of course, you have those scenarios where those guys get lucky. Same with John Morant. He went to the NBA just because of his March Madness. But if you're good enough and you're still calling out for them to be played, you have nothing to worry about. You're going to go to the NFL. Trevor Lawrence, please. You know you're going to be a top 5 pick. You're probably going to go to the Patriots if they tank for you. Whatever. You're going to be an NFL QB. You've won a national championship. Your time is up. Look out for the safety of the other people while you're at it.
Oh, and I might add that, everyone's going to be in the same boat. Let's assume that maybe the Big 12 and SEC cancel or have some season that you can't really credit the players' performances because it was so dysfunctional. All the players are going to be in the same boat, really, right? Because nobody really had a 2020 season at that point, and you're going off 2019 and 2018 and 2017 maybe if you're an upperclassman. So it's not like you're really missing out on something that the other players are getting, right? So yes, it's sad that they're not going to get the opportunity to improve their draft stock, but at the same time, it's not like anyone else is going to get to improve their draft stock as well.
Completely agree. And it's just a real mess with college football. But when we get back, we'll talk about the absolute craziness that was the NBA playoff games in the bubble yesterday. Stick around. Welcome back to Sports Table Talk. I'm Ryan Blake, joined by Jack Stankey and Sam Levine. And Man, we're talking bubble now. I mean, these games yesterday, what a fantastic slate of games that the NBA put on. Suns win 7 in a row. I mean, absolute insane run. And guys, Damian Lillard scored 61 points in a win versus the Mavericks last night. Just crazy stuff.
I'm officially going to say it. Steph Curry has been the best point guard in the NBA for a very long time. I'm not saying Damian Lillard has surpassed him, but he is definitely making a case for himself to be the best point guard in the NBA. 61 points. He's averaging 54 points per game over his last 2 games. You know, Dame time's never been more relevant. He dropped 40 in the last fourth quarters that he's played. You know, his team is right there. 4 teams are, you know, a half game back of each other for the 8th playoff spot. This is going to be the most exciting finish to a regular season we've seen.
All right, listen up. It is Dame time all the time now in the NBA bubble. Dame is on 100% of the time. 61 last night against the Mavs, 45 against the Nuggets. He's dropping 50, 40, and now he's 60 like it's nothing. We saw him hit 3 after 3 last night. It is just incredible to watch him. And like you said, Jack, he's making a case that he is the best point guard in the NBA. He's also making a case that he's been the best player since the bubble restart. I love what he's been doing since we come back.
I'll tell you, I mean, Paul George should not have said a word. I mean, this dude is dangerous now. I mean,
he needed more motivation.
61 points. I mean, he's got his team fighting all the way to grab this 8 or 9 seed in this playoffs. I mean, absolute insane performances. But let's move to the Suns. I mean, the Phoenix Suns are 7-0 in the bubble and still might not make the playoffs. I mean, is that a flaw in the system? Or, I mean, it's still crazy play from the Suns, but I think something might be wrong here. If they go 8-0 and still have the possibility to not make the playoffs, I just feel like that's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about the Phoenix Suns here, guys. I mean, they're being led by Devin Booker, you know, who's been playing out of his mind. DeAndre Ayton, I know, was going to be a good center. He's obviously come onto the stage sooner than I expected. But, I mean, I think the way that they run their offense is just so, like, well put. You know, there's no really words to describe it. They don't really push the ball that much. They like to play a slow-paced offense. Ricky Rubio has the experience from when he was on the Timberwolves of running an offense as a point guard like that. You know, Cam Johnson, the rookie from UNC, has definitely been showing out. Mikal Bridges as well. And you're led by the bubble MVP and Devin Booker, averaging over 35 points per game.
Oh, and you mentioned Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson in there, 2 forward versatile players that have really stepped it up in the bubble to give, you know, Phoenix a much more well-rounded and versatile and young, fresh legs in, you know, these games. They've consistently been averaging 12 and 13 points per game, putting up solid numbers to complement Devin Booker and his 30-plus points per game. Also, Ricky Rubio is a guy that you mentioned. He is a phenomenal passer, and he just dishes it out to D-Book and anyone else on that team that's got the open look. He is a name to watch on that team with a very, very talented passing ability.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when you watch that Suns team play, they've got heart. I mean, and then as Sam pointed out, the point guard play has been phenomenal. It's not just Devin Booker running the show. You've got some great point guards. Cameron Payne has made an appearance in the bubble after years spent in the G League. I mean, and he's playing well. I mean, very great bench player for the Suns. They've got a lot of stuff working for them. I really like this team.
Yeah, I mean, let's calm down there about Cameron Payne. I think, you know.
Hey, he's got good numbers.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure he does. I mean, I want to move even into the Eastern Conference as well. It wasn't as close for the 8th seed, but we're gonna have some tight matchups there. I mean, Bucks Magic, I think that's a given. You know, Giannis, the GOAT in the NBA right now. You know, I think the Raptors Nets series could be nice. The series that I'm looking out for is the Pacers Heat series. Now, this is the 4-5 seed matchup. Jimmy Butler has led the Heat. He came into South Beach with definitely a chip on his shoulder after losing to the Raptors last year in the playoffs with the Sixers. I think him and Duncan Robinson with undrafted rookie Kendrick Nunn, Rookie of the Year finalist, could definitely make some noise. But, hey, you got the second bubble goat in TJ Warren on the Pacers as well, So I think that's going to be a very tight series. I genuinely don't know who's going to come out with it.
I really like this series. Like looking in, it's a very interesting series for me because, for the Pacers, I feel like they don't really have one distinguished star, but they have a lot of really good, solid, young, athletic players with Oladipo, Brogdon, Turner, Warren, etc. And then you look at the Heat, they got Jimmy Butler as their distinguished star, then Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, like you mentioned. So there is a lot of young talent here that could go head to head. I think this one could go either way. I would pick the Heat in this matchup, but we saw TJ Warren's atrocious game against them a couple nights ago, so we'll have to see how he, can play. But really interesting series for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Before that series, before the injuries to the 76ers, I would have had to take the Celtics 76ers as the most interesting series so far, but the 76ers have been destroyed by injuries. Simmons out for the year and beat out for a significant amount of time. We'll look at that. I'm going to have to take the Celtics easy now. But again, in that Heat Pacers series, I really like the Heat in that one. Just the young guys surrounded by Jimmy Butler. The way that team's constructed, I just really like how the team was put together. You got a great young center in Bam Adebayo. You got rookies like undrafted rookie Duncan Robinson, just launching threes from everywhere. Tyler Hero has been playing good. As we mentioned, Kendrick Nunn has been playing good. I mean, just really great all-around play from this Heat team. Bench is very nice. So I'm going to have to take the Heat in this one. But then when we go back to that Celtics 76ers series, I don't know how the 76ers are getting through the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been such a big roller coaster season for the Sixers. Injuries plagued them the whole year, and now it's come to a kind of stand halt, I would say, with Ben Simmons being out for the year, along with Joel Embiid. I mean, yeah, the Sixers had high aspirations coming into the playoffs, but I think they're going to be leaving the bubble very shortly. But, I mean, even some other matchups going on in the East and the West, public service announcement to whoever gets the 1 seed in the West, it's the Lakers now. Don't take that matchup for granted. Do not take that matchup for granted. You have the Trailblazers, the Suns, and the Grizzlies, who I think are all capable of giving the Lakers a run for their money. Of course, several things are going to have to go wrong for the Lakers here. With LeBron James and Anthony Davis, it's hard to lose. But if you're Damian Lillard or Devin Booker with this momentum that you're riding off like a surfing wave, you can definitely make some noise in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and if you're the Trailblazers, I really do think that the Trailblazers are the team out of those three that really has the real shot to defeat the Lakers. And if you're the Lakers, you can't look at the Trailblazers as an 8 seed. You have to look at each other as equals because for a couple of reasons. First off, CJ McCollum, the Trailblazers' second man, really only played, I believe, 30-ish games this season, so he missed out on a lot of games. And Yusuf Nurkic and Zach Collins, two of their best big men, Yusuf Nurkic being a phenomenal big man that has helped them greatly in the bubble. They combined for a total of 5 games played in the normal regular season. With him coming back, gives them a huge boost. And then Dame has been incredible. He can single-handedly push their team over the hump and give them the win. So in all honesty, I could see that game going to 6-7 games and potentially the Trailblazers coming out on top.
Completely agree with that, Sam. And as Jack said before, this is not the Warriors of old. You're not going to sweep through the first couple series without an issue, no problem. This Lakers team is going to have some roadblocks early in these playoffs. I really feel like, as we said, the Trailblazers do have a good shot of getting a couple games on them. But as we look at the rest of the Western Conference playoffs, you got some great first-round matchups. You got Clippers, Mavs, which could be close, I think. But the series that I'm looking at the West, as cool as the Heat Pacers series should be, I'm really looking at the Nuggets Jazz series to be a classic matchup. You've got two teams that I would say are pretty even, and you got the Jokic versus Gobert matchup, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Gobert doesn't, spread COVID to Jokic, I think Jokic has the edge in that center matchup, but that is going to be a great series. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, the Jazz definitely have one of the best young superstars in the league in Donovan Mitchell, but, the Nuggets are kind of nice. They're getting Gary Harris back now, a big defensive piece there for him. Jamal Murray, again, one of the best shooters in the NBA, top tier point guard. And of course, you can't go wrong with Nikola Jokic. But another series I'm looking at bad is another 5-4 matchup. I've always been high on the Thunder this season. I think they defeat the Houston Rockets in 6 games.
Yeah. So to touch on that, I think that could be a great series. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has really proved himself to be a stronghold and a real starting guard in this league. Chris Paul, after being traded to the Rockets, he's proved the doubters wrong. He's come back and has proved that he has still got it. Those two really are my main players for them that have shown and really proved to the rest of the league that they can still compete. And that's what I feel like the Thunder have been this year. They've been a prove-it team that has really exceeded expectations with Steven Adams as well. I think that's going to be a great series, especially with all the storylines, because Westbrook, Harden obviously used to be on the Thunder. Both were great with them. Russell Westbrook obviously being a Thunder legend. And also you got the storylines of, the Thunder don't have a finals win in their entire history. You also got the storyline that Harden and Westbrook don't have a finals win in their history. So top 2 players for the Rockets vying for their first finals win, and the Thunder as a whole vying for their first finals win. And I also think it's important to mention that if the Lakers were to win their first round matchup, the Lakers would play one of these teams in the second round, and I do not think that is a cupcake walk for the Lakers if they were to play either of these teams.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And then when you think about the point guard swap last offseason with the Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook trade, this is a time where I really am going to miss the fans. I mean, this would be such an incredible atmosphere with Russell Westbrook on the Houston Rockets coming back to OKC for a couple games. I mean, that would have been special, especially in the playoffs. But as we all said before, I mean, that's going to be a very special series. And as I pointed to, the Lakers, again, as Sam said, it's not going to be easy. I mean, even if I'm assuming they will get through this first round, pretty much unmarked, no matter who it is. They might go to 6, possibly, but it gets much harder from there when it comes to the Rockets and the Thunder winner. I mean, it could get much more complicated, much more really just harder for the Lakers to try to get through this.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I didn't really understand where either side was coming from when they traded straight up Westbrook for Chris Paul. The trade that definitely worked out well, I feel like, for the Thunder was the Clippers trade they made, getting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from the Clippers for all those picks for Paul George. I mean, yeah, believe me, Paul George is a stellar, phenomenal player, but I think Shai can be one of the better players in the league for a lot of years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. But when we get back, we'll talk some more basketball with NBA TV and TNT sideline reporter Jared Greenberg. Stick around. Welcome back to Sports Table Talk. Joining us now, straight from the bubble, is NBA TV and TNT sideline reporter Jared Greenberg. Jared, thanks so much for the time.
Fellas, thank you for having me.
What has your bubble experience been like so far?
It's been a lot of this, fellas. In my hotel room a lot, doing a lot of these conversations with people. But I'm glad that we finally have gotten basketball over the last couple weeks here. For me, it was a wildly fascinating, almost like a psychological experiment here where, for 7 straight days I had to quarantine and I really couldn't leave my room except for once a day to go get tested. And then once my quarantine was over is when the regular season games restarted. So I've had 7 games over the first 15 days of the restart here. So I've been nonstop working, doing games on TNT, trying to prepare for my next game. And, it's been awesome. I got to be honest. Like, I obviously miss my wife, miss being home, but after being home, stuck in a small 2-bedroom condo with her for 4 straight months, it's been great to separate for a little bit and, get some breathing space. But it's been fun being back here, working again. I'm so grateful for that. And the basketball, I'm sure you guys would appreciate, just how hard the players are playing and how competitive these games have been. Obviously not in an ideal setting. It's been a lot of fun to be a part of something that hopefully we'll never see again, but certainly is historic.
Yeah, so Jared, you mentioned, you were a late addition to the bubble. You had to come in. You quarantined for 7 straight days. Tell us more about that. Like, what was the protocol every day? I'm sure, staying in a Disney hotel room wasn't what you expected yourself doing in August.
Right.
Leaving your room to get tested once a day. Explain more about that.
No, and in fact, I'm supposed to be on my honeymoon in Hawaii right now, so slightly different. Yeah, so slightly different. I got to be honest, it wasn't that bad. When the day that I checked in for my quarantine was when the scrimmages started. So the really cool part for me was that basketball was on from noon until midnight every day.
Yeah.
And really, I had a lot of work to do, right? I had to get ready for all of my games I was doing. So I took the opportunity to prepare a lot for all of those games and talk to people and, do a lot of reading. So that kind of worked out for me. It wasn't that bad. And then, like I said, once a day, I would take a walk, just a couple minutes to go to the testing room to get tested. So that was the only time I was allowed out. But, they brought 3 meals a day to my door. They'd knock on the door. They'd leave it there. If I got any packages, somebody would come deliver it to me. I know it's not the lifestyle that many of us have gotten used to as spoiled brats when we cover the NBA and we fly around the country with great accommodations and stay in 5-star hotels. But honestly, after 4 months of not working, I would pretty much take anything at this point. And this is way better than just anything.
Yeah. And Jared Greenberg, sideline reporter for TNT, straight from the NBA bubble. And Jared, have you enjoyed the play-in format for the NBA that they've been doing so far? Why or why not?
Yeah, I so far I think it's been great. I've been impressed with how hard the players are playing, how competitive the games have been, and I think as we're seeing here, and we'll get a little more clarity tonight and tomorrow with this play-in format for the teams to compete for that final playoff spot in the West. I think it's added a little more juice. It's added a little more intrigue to all of this. And I think it's given some teams that if they had that longer runway of the 12 to 15 games that were still left to be played when we ended on March 11th, maybe they would have made it anyway. So this is kind of giving them a little more of an equal playing field. But the interesting part about it, guys, and I'll give you a little insight from a conversation I had with Frank Vogel, the head coach of the Lakers. He's not pleased about it because he says that what this is doing is throwing a huge disadvantage to the Lakers who earned the right to be the number 1 seed. And the reason for it is because they're the number 1 seed. They obviously don't have home court advantage. They obviously don't have fans. And now they're not going to know possibly until the day before their game who their opponent is. So while everybody else is going to get a couple of days at least, some have had a week to prepare. Like the Milwaukee Bucks will know a week in advance who their first round opponent is. The Toronto Raptors know a week in advance who their first round opponent is. The Lakers may not know until Sunday evening who they're playing on Tuesday in game 1 of the NBA playoffs. That's a huge disadvantage for a team that earned the right to be the top seed in the West.
Now, I know as a sideline reporter, you value, the close relationships you have with players and coaches that you've made across the years.
Yeah.
How does being in the bubble and having to physically stand 6 feet away from the person you're interviewing, play a role in how you interview them? Is it different? Do you ask different questions? Like, how is it different?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll start by saying not only standing 6 feet away from them, but being here in the bubble, we have gotten a lot less access to players than we typically would get if we're traveling to a city to do a game. If I'm doing a Laker game, for example, in LA, I travel in the day before. If they have a practice or a game, I go to it that day. And then the day of our game, I'll go to their shoot around and get the opportunity to just talk to some people, whether it's on the record or off the record, and just, get some insight as to what's going on, or maybe ask questions or get clarification on some stories that I'm going to be working on for that night. Here, they're doing all of these press conferences over Zoom. So like what we're doing, these reporters from all over the country basically have the same exact access as I do, because the player or the coach sits down for a Zoom meeting and people from around the country are asking them questions. Now I'm in the room and I can ask a question, but other than that, we really don't get access. And the really weird part is teams have been canceling their practices, canceling their morning shoot arounds. So like, for example, the last couple of days, I tried to go to Phoenix Suns practice because I have a Suns game tomorrow, and I have not seen the Phoenix Suns yet play. And I tried to go to their practice the last couple of days, and they've canceled everything they've done. So me seeing them play tomorrow will be the first time that I've interacted with them, which kind of stinks from a preparation standpoint. That typically would never happen in the regular season. And then in terms of the question you asked about staying 6 feet apart while I'm on the air asking questions, I wouldn't say I ask any different questions. I mean, obviously there have been times when I ask questions about the environment, which are different, but that's a product of what I would do normally. Like I ask about the situation they're in. The only difficult part sometimes is the coaches' interviews at the end of the first and third quarter on TNT, that sometimes for some of the coaches, it's hard for them to hear me because they're 6 feet away. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. But other than that, it's just the access that's the biggest thing that's different.
So since you're covering the Suns game tomorrow, I assume you'd have the inside information. Are they putting something in the bubble food for them? I mean, why have they been so successful?
Yeah, the $1 million question that I got every time I did an interview leading up to the bubble was, will this environment favor an older team or a younger team? And I didn't know the answer, and I don't think we still know the answer, but I have to imagine there's something to the Suns being a little more focused here, being a younger team. Nobody's experienced this type of environment, right? But maybe the Suns, are closer to their AAU days when they kind of played in a little bit of a similar atmosphere, I guess. But I also think it has a lot to do with Monty Williams being able to understand the pulse of his team and get them focused for what, this task is.
Yeah. And speaking of the Suns and the West and teams that are getting hot, what are your thoughts on the race for the 8 seed in the West? And who do you think will end up as the 8 seed in the West, with Portland, Memphis, San Antonio, and Phoenix all being within a half a game back of each other?
Yeah, I think clearly the best team right now is the Portland Trailblazers. Will they, and it appears they're going to be in a play-in, right? It appears the Blazers are going to be that team. It would be a freak thing if they're not right now, but this is such an I keep falling back on this. This is such an unusual process that we've never done before. Really, nothing that happens over the next 5 days is going to shock me. So if it's any one of those teams you mentioned, I wouldn't be totally surprised, just because I've kind of trained myself not to, get too attached to a way of thinking, because everything is so fluid here. But I think without question, the best basketball team, and the only team, really going back to your earlier question, that the Lakers would stay up at night worrying about would be the Blazers.
Yeah.
I'm joined by NBA TV and TNT sideline reporter Jared Greenberg. Jared, in either conference, do you see a team that not many people are talking about that can make a deep playoff bubble run?
I mean, I guess it depends on who you're listening to or talking to about people not talking about these teams. But I think, I think in the East, the Raptors, who obviously played pretty good basketball here in the bubble, have a really good shot. And I really have always been a big fan of the Boston Celtics, especially now with Kemba Walker coming back. I just think they're so talented. I think Jason Tatum is really going to show people the level he has ascended to. So I think, Toronto and Boston, I think, are really going to challenge the Milwaukee Bucks, one of those two teams. And then in the West, my go-to team right now is the Clippers, but they're still not totally whole. They're still waiting for Montrezl Harrell to clear quarantine and start playing. Patrick Beverley's still dealing with a calf injury. But other than them, and obviously the Lakers, the team that intrigues me the most here is Oklahoma City. Not that I think they can win a championship. I don't think that ultimately they'll get to the Western Conference Finals. But Chris Paul looks like he's on a mission. And this team full of, again, mostly younger players have that mentality we talked about the Phoenix Suns. They're just putting their head down, they're focusing, and they're looking to prove people wrong.
Yeah. And do you think that in this bubble, we have seen a different and more competitive brand of basketball here on and off of the court?
It probably is more competitive as the first 8 games of a restart than it would have been if it was the last 8 games of the regular season. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that, just like all of us who are fans of the game have missed basketball for the last 4 or 5 months, I think these guys have missed playing competitive basketball, right? So I think that's led to a little more of the competitive nature. And I also think they understand how many people are watching and they want to put on a good show. And I also think, too, for the majority of the 22 teams that are here, they understand what's at stake. So they want to be peaking or at least in the right headspace and have the right chemistry on the court for when the playoffs start. Because typically, you have an 82-game season to ramp up for it. Now they know that it's more of even a sprint than it is a marathon, because come Monday night, they got to be ready to play playoff basketball. And I think they're, correctly so, using these 8 games to get there.
Now, I know a bunch of players and staff and especially reporters have been doing a lot of, kind of fun things in the bubble. Taco Fall hit the links for the first time in his life a couple of days ago. Have you done anything fun? Have you hit the Players Lounge? Have you hit the links? Have you played golf? What has been your favorite moment so far outside of the basketball?
Probably my favorite moment so far is the barbershop. Got to get myself a haircut.
Nice.
I get a haircut,
by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you. I get a haircut, pretty regularly during the NBA season, so this has been tough for me. We're as a member of the media, we have been given access to do a little bit more every week. They give us a little more access to stuff, but the times of that stuff is kind of tough for me. Like, the only time we're allowed to play golf is 6 a.m. on Thursday morning. So I typically have a game every Thursday on TNT, so I'm not waking up at 5 a.m. to go play golf.
Yeah.
And, they've had fishing and boating excursions available, but I've been too busy so far. Hopefully at some point I'll get the opportunity to take advantage of that. But no, my big event was going to the barbershop.
Nice.
All right, Jared, here's $1 million question. Watching all these teams practice and play throughout this bubble, do you see which team do you see winning the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I think it's the Clippers right now. I don't feel great about that. I think that we're in for an unpredictable playoff run here. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises. But ultimately, I think the Clippers have the best of kind of both worlds of not only having a lot of great experienced talent at the top of their pecking order with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but also the amount of depth and versatility that they have. The Clippers have shown throughout the year they can endure injuries or players, not being available and still win games. So I think it's the Clippers. I don't feel as good about making that prediction as I have other years going into the playoffs about who I think will win a title. But ultimately, that's who I'm sticking with.
It seems we've got the best basketball ahead of us. Thanks so much for the time, Jared.
You got it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That was NBA TV and TNT sideline reporter Jared Greenberg. When we get back, we'll talk the Astros. We'll talk the Athletics. What has been going on with the suspensions from the brawl? We'll see. Stick around. Welcome back to Sports Table Talk. I'm Ryan Blake, joined by Jack Stankey and Sam Levine. After a great conversation with Jared Greenberg, thanks so much to him coming on. But we're going to move to baseball. The Astros are in trouble again with a brawl starting the other day with Astros hitting coach Alex Centrone and Ramon Laureano of the Oakland Athletics. They are in trouble again. And Alex Centrone was suspended 20 games by the MLB, and Ramon Laureano was suspended 6 games and fined.
Yeah, I mean, the Astros got away with their cheating scandal with a slap on the wrist, if you ask me. The GM was forced to, leave. They fired the manager, also forced to leave. They still had solid players in Altuve, Bregman, Correa. But, I never really jumped on the train that, these guys can't be good without the sign stealing. They are all hitting under 200 this season so far. And this is finally a bigger punishment. They gave the hitting coach a 20-game suspension. Really nice on Rob Manfred's part. I mean, you can't go out and say things about Roman Laureano's mother for crying out loud. I mean, it's his mother. Come on.
Yeah, and it's just so immature. I mean, it's not even a player. It's a coach at this point. He's coming out and saying things about his mother. Like, why? It's just immature. It's just the word for it.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And then when it comes to this, I feel like it's much more clear-cut. I could agree with almost every suspension and punishment that was made throughout this, unlike the Joe Kelly situation, which I could touch on, which caused, outrage across America. 8 games we could debate it, but I really don't think it should have happened. But when it comes to this incident involving the Astros yet again, I could definitely agree with the suspensions, the 20 games. I mean, come on, you're a coach. You should be setting the example for the players. To go out there and just start a brawl with a Oakland Athletic player, not another coach, but a player, I just really feel like it's immature, and he gets what he deserves.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. He really does get what he deserves. And, we all knew as a baseball community, as a sports community, that when the Astros started the season, they were getting plunked. I mean, they were getting hit hard. They were, finally came out this offseason, still no really repercussions happened for them. But, I personally knew, and I'm sure a lot of other people saw the foresight of, pitchers just throwing at them. Again, I don't think, of course, safety plays in a big part. Of course, I don't think you should be going for the head. Of course, that could, end someone's career. But, plunking Correa, plunking Altuve, hitting Bregman, hitting Yordan Alvarez, I think it's crazy, but I think it's deserved.
I mean, really, I agree with you wholeheartedly that it's deserved what they're getting. But honestly, right now we're seeing the Astros just be embarrassed. And they went in the recent, probably last 3 years, they were looked at as a World Series contender every single one of those years and a top team that should be feared. But now they're just honestly being looked at as a joke, as a team that can't stay out of trouble, they're just giving themselves, they're making it harder on themselves. They are not making it any easier. And you would think that they would try and lessen the load and give themselves a better public image after it was, it came out that they were stealing signs in the World Series in 2017 and 2019. So they're just not improving their public image. They are not helping themselves.
Absolutely. And as Jack mentioned before, no real consequences. So you, again, as a baseball fan, you would have to think that they were going to take some punishment from pitchers across the league. I obviously don't advocate for throwing at the head, but I don't get how Correa and Bregman could get upset when they, one, weren't hit, and two, you got to know they have it coming. But as a Yankees fan, personally, I don't need any of the hitting, any of the suspensions. I'm fine enough with them being 7-10 right now. As Sam mentioned before, very struggling team. I thought they were going to be contenders for the American League. Doesn't look like it so far.
What I don't like is the Astros playing victim in this situation. I mean, they hit Roman Laureano 3 times in that series before he finally said, you know what, that's enough. You guys were the cheaters. I didn't cheat. I wasn't even on your team. I wasn't even near any of the cheating scandal. And you guys are drilling me in the back 3 times this series. Cut it out. Stop drilling me. And he deserved it. If the guy was talking about his mother, he should. He proved his point, and he was angry and upset playing the victim.
It's just childish. It's just childish and immature. We've seen it countless times in the last few months, especially with, obviously, the stealing signs. And now this, I mean, again, I know we keep coming back to it, but talking about someone's mother and instigating it like that, of course, and like you said, the Astros playing victim. What do you expect to come? It's baffling. It's truly baffling.
Exactly. And when you look at this, it's another situation with the New York Knicks, but it's kind of separate because it's more of an attitude thing. I think it all starts at the top. It's Jim Crane setting the example for the rest of this entire organization. Exactly. You've got coaches yelling about players' mothers in the dugout. It just can't be done. Again, playing victim throughout all of this. I mean, it's been his problem. It's been his thing to deal with. He's had toxic coaches in the past caught cheating and suspended for years. I mean, I feel like this all starts from the top, and this is a majority of this is Jim Crane's decision making, and that I just think he's a bad guy when it comes to these baseball decisions, just really hiring the wrong people. I don't know Alex Cintrone personally or anything. I don't know if he's a great guy off the field, but I mean, this is the example that you set for the rest of your franchise as the owner of the Houston Astros. And I just can't believe that just over the past 3-4 years that it's gone on like this.
And we see a lot of this throughout sports with toxic teams, it starts at the roots. It starts with the owners, the GMs, the people who set the foundation for the team. And this is not I'd like to say it's a unique situation, but it really isn't. I mean, maybe the stealing signs and the instigating like that is unique, but it's not unique when we've seen toxic and rotten coaches, players, cheating. We've seen cheating in other sports. So as much as I like to say this is a one-time thing that we've seen, it's just not. And we know where it comes from. It starts at the roots. It starts with the people building the foundation for the team and setting the culture.
And I think, Rob Manfred coming in, suspending Alex Intron for 20 games, I think that might be too harsh for what happened specifically in this series. I think he's trying to make up for his wrongdoings in the past, and how, you can't, suspend someone for, saying things about his mother and fighting about that. But at the same time, you can't suspend someone for, cheating.
Mhm.
Either suspend him for cheating or, make it a 5-game suspension. This hitting coach doesn't deserve 20 games for, starting a bench brawl. Alex Bregman and Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa deserve 60 games for stealing signs and winning a World Series off it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when it comes to just this, I completely get why Ramon Laureano charged Alex Intron. I mean, obviously, when you look at the protocols, it's definitely not allowed in today's day and age. Looks reflected very poorly on the sport of baseball, with people seeing just an empty stadium filled with no fans and two teams going at it right outside the dugout. But I mean, I completely understand what Ramon Laureano did. I mean, starting that thing with his mother, as we keep going back to it, I mean, just ridiculous from an Astros coach. And again, it just reflects poorly.
This reflects poorly on the rest of the team. It's the same thing with the stealing signs. Like you said, just to build off of what you said, reflects badly on the rest of the team, on everyone. It just builds a bad reputation.
Bad reflection for the sport, bad reflection for the Astros, just as usual. But when we get back, we'll talk some more baseball. We'll talk some pretender contender. Stay with us.
Go.
Welcome back to Sports Table Talk. And as we join you, we have breaking news. Still waiting for verified confirmation, but there are reports that All-Pro tight end George Kittle had just signed a 6-year, $94.8 million extension with the 49ers. Jack, do you have any first thoughts on this?
Hey, I mean, for the last couple of years, I've thought that George Kittle was even better than Travis Kelce. I think he's finally getting what he deserves. I think he's the best tight end in football. I think he will continue to be the best tight end in football. And I think this money, all of it, is very, very well deserved. For such a great story coming out of Iowa, being drafted, I think this is a great, great signing for the 49ers, helpful on both sides of the party.
Oh, yeah, being a fifth-round pick, like you said, being such a underrated prospect out of Iowa, then coming in and becoming a top 2, probably the best tight end in football, getting his $47.4 million guaranteed. He just capitalized on such a big contract and very well deserves. Obviously, this isn't confirmed yet, so we just shot a text over to one of our sources at ESPN with Adam Schefter, so we'll wait for official confirmation on that. But if this is true, this would be great for him and great for the 49ers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If this is true, obviously he's got his money, definitely deserves it. Top tight end. I mean, echoing all the same points. I mean, just an overall great football player. But we'll update you throughout the entire show. We'll make sure we got you with the breaking news once confirmed by one of the big names. But for now, we're going to move to baseball. I mean, we could just talk contender, pretender, some teams. Yankees have been struggling recently, started to string back together with a win yesterday, and the Rockies are looking really good.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees started off this year as American League favorites. Some people had them as World Series favorites. They have to fix their pitching. If they want to return to, what they've been for, this decade, they've been one of the better teams in baseball. If they want to go to the World Series, they need to fix their pitching badly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when it comes to the Yankees lineup, when you watch that team, at least half of that lineup is struggling hitting the ball. I mean, Gleyber Torres has been really flopping throughout this entire season so far. Gary Sanchez has been playing horrible. I mean, just real struggles on the offensive side from the New York Yankees. But then when you move to the other team in New York, I think they got it just as bad, if not worse. I mean, the Mets have completely fallen apart, really bad on both ends. I mean, Edwin Diaz, he played better, pitched an okay performance last night, getting better. I still don't trust him for that closer role. I don't know about you, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets, they have to fix their bullpen. Seth Lugo is their go-to guy. They signed Dylan Betances around Christmas of last year. He has to step up big. They've blown already a couple games this year, and the story of the Mets last year was all those blown games. I mean, Edwin Diaz himself blew 7 games just on him. And if he didn't blow those 7 games, the Mets would be a 90-win team, and they would be fighting for the National League East. So, it's really, it's hard to say. Edwin Diaz has to step up. The bullpen has to step up. They need pitching, or the Mets are going to fall apart and won't be able to recover.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you put it on that Dylan Betances signing, I thought that would be real big for the Mets, but he's really been struggling recently and hasn't stepped back into his prime Yankee form yet. We'll see. But as you pointed to before, the bullpen does have to step up. A lot of struggles. You can't have DeGrom carry you for the entire game and then mess it up in the last 4 innings. I mean, it's just going to be a real struggle with this Mets, not even only the bullpen, but the starting pitching. I mean, you see Marcus Stroman opts out the other day. I really feel like now the starting pitching, which I thought was very strong for the Mets before Syndergaard started with the Tommy John surgery. I thought this was going to be a focal point of the Mets team. But, Jack, I mean, they've been really decimated by injuries and opt-outs for the Mets starting rotation.
Yeah, the Mets starting rotation is a top 10 rotation in baseball. I don't care what anyone says. They are a top 10 rotation. You have the best pitcher in baseball in Jacob deGrom. You have strong arms with Syndergaard. Steven Matz has been shaky, but he's somewhat reliable. And today, starting for the first time all year, is Robert Gsellman, for the Mets tonight, who actually won the starting job back in 2017, moved to kind of a bullpen type of pitcher 2018, 2019, got hurt. Now he's going to come in because, the Mets literally have no one to pitch tonight against the Nationals. So I'm excited to see how Robert Gsellman can kind of, maybe add some depth to this rotation. But, a team that has not had any struggles at all with anything, the Oakland Athletics, they are going completely nuts right now. They sweep the Rangers. They sweep the Astros. They are on an absolute tear. Matt Chapman is leading this team to victory. Roman Laureano, we spoke about him earlier, got suspended. He's playing out of his mind. A lot of things have been going well for the Oakland Athletics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then moving to another team, you got to look at the Houston Astros. We talked about them before. So they're in the same boat as the Yankees and the Mets. I mean, definitely not an Athletics-like team who's strung together many wins. As you said, all their top guys are basically batting 200 or under. I mean, a lot of struggles out of Houston. Maybe it's that no trash can because it could be heard with no fans.
Hey, tell me about it. That trash can is the most integral part of their team. I mean, you're telling me Jose Altuve, a former MVP, is hitting under 200? He's won the batting title before. Come on now, Jose Altuve. You can't hit under 200. Alex Bregman, another name, one of the best third basemen in baseball, also hitting under 200. Carlos Correa, George Springer. None of these guys are stepping up. Of course, losing Garrett Cole to the Yankees was detrimental to them. Justin Verlander, there was word that he's going to be out for the season. He cleared that up in the air, though, and said that, it's not going to be the entire season. If the Astros don't turn around quickly, I still see them being a wild card team. But the Athletics can start to run away with this division, in this 60-game season. And, they need to change things fast.
Yeah, especially talking about the American League. Do you have any predictions right now for who can make it out? I mean, a lot of struggling teams coming into this, but a lot of teams that are on top, and some of the best teams in baseball are in the American League.
I mean, the Athletics are just so good. The Yankees, are on another level. If the Yankees start playing like the Yankees and Aaron Judge continues, his hot streak, leading the league in home runs with 9 so far this year, I still have the Yankees going to the World Series. But a sleeper pick going to the World Series that could caused some trouble for the Yankees, the Minnesota Twins hitting the most home runs ever in the season last year, breaking the Yankees record. You know, they have pitching, they have the bullpen, they have hitters. I see the Twins and Yankees going to the ALCS. The Astros could also definitely make it if things turn around for them. I still see the New York Yankees making the World Series.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to have to go with the Yankees as well. I mean, they just got to get that hitting back. I mean, you'll have Chapman in a couple weeks. He'll be nice and healthy, and that bullpen will be right back. I mean, you just need a little bit of that starting rotation help on the back end, and I think they're fine. But when we get back, first day of the NHL playoffs, we'll talk about it. Real entertaining
Crazy stuff.
Absolutely. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Table Talk. I'm Ryan Blake, joined by Jack Stankey and rejoined by Sam Levine after a couple technical difficulties. But more talk out of San Francisco as George Kittle denies the rumor in a tweet that he has signed a contract extension with San Francisco. So we'll keep you updated on that entire situation throughout the remaining time in the show. But we're going to move to the NHL playoffs. Day one yesterday, very, very entertaining. A 5 overtime game was played in the NHL last night. I mean, just completely entertaining hockey all around.
This Lightning Blue Jackets game was the most entertaining hockey game I have watched, I think, in the entirety of my life. You had goaltender for the Columbus Blue Jackets, Korpisalo, setting an NHL record with 85 saves made. Are you kidding me? 85 saves. They went, it was 5 overtimes. The game started at 3:09 and didn't end close till 9:20 p.m. I mean, somehow the Lightning come out with it. So many opportunities. By the end, I think both teams were just, slugging it there. They were sloppy play, not crisp passing, But, hey, Braden Point was a big player for the Lightning that entire game, and Braden Point came up big again with the game-winning overtime goal in 5th overtime.
It was absolute madness. Like you said, towards the end of those 5 overtimes total, 8 periods played, it was madness. It got sloppy. Players were tired, but it was playoff hockey. It was wild. It was crazy. There were a bunch of opportunities and a lot of great defensive plays specifically by the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you mentioned Korpisalo setting the record, 85 saves. Well, the Blue Jackets goalie wasn't too shabby either with 61 saves. Obviously, when you're playing 8 periods, you're going to get those save numbers up. But both goalies were absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, I've been saying absolutely throughout the entire sports world, there is a select few games where I really wish there was fans. Imagine the ovation that Korpisalo would have gotten from the entire fan base at that game if he was making 85 saves in front of an entire arena of fans. I mean, that would have been incredible.
If you were to ask someone if, sometime in the future, a goalie is going to get 85 saves, do you think their team wins or loses? If you were to ask someone that and you were to tell them that their team loses, I mean, they would have a heart attack. Are you kidding me? 85 saves and you lose? That just goes to show you what kind of spectacular play we saw from both teams last night, especially from Braden Point putting in 2 goals for the Tampa Bay Lightning, propelling them over the Blue Jackets. He was at Korpisalo's Achilles heel. As we mentioned, he didn't have many weaknesses with 85 saves. It's just incredible. I keep repeating it in my head. He beat the record by some 25 saves. So, incredible.
Yeah, I mean, a game that wasn't so close was the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Chicago Blackhawks. A 12-1 matchup. Chicago advanced after beating Edmonton in the qualifying round. Vegas won the round robin, no issues there. Vegas comes out on top. They were down 1-0 early. They scored 4 straight to win the game 4-1. And Vegas are a lot of people's favorites to go to the Stanley Cup. Mine is the Colorado Avalanche, but I definitely see the argument for Vegas.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I said yesterday that they were going to be my Stanley Cup favorites. And just such an explosive team, fun to watch. I mean, all around just great hockey from them. And I think if they keep this up, they should definitely make it to that Stanley Cup.
To be honest, I really like Vegas for to go to the Stanley Cup, potentially win it. I like the Avalanche as well. I think both teams have a real shot to get to the Cup. Obviously, Vegas to get to the Cup second time would be in 3 years if they got back to the Cup. But yeah, I mean, Chicago coming into the play-in series as a 12 seed. They upset the inconsistent Edmonton with who I think will win the MVP, Draisaitl. And yeah, they just were very underwhelming in a 4-1 loss. Vegas just really asserted themselves over the seasoned veteran team that Chicago is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And, another close series that I think could go 6 or 7 games is Carolina Hurricanes versus the Boston Bruins. Boston pulled out a tough one today. Their game got canceled actually last night because of the Tampa Bay Lightning Columbus Blue Jacket overtime game. Boston won in double overtime off of a nice feed from Pastrnak to Patrice Bergeron to seal the game for Boston there. Carolina absolutely destroyed the Rangers. They outplayed them, outdominated them, outthink them, in every aspect. They were better than the Rangers. Thankfully, the Rangers got the number 1 pick out of it. But, Carolina, I definitely can see going far. And if they upset Boston, I can see them even going to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But just to go back to it, I'm sorry. A game was postponed because of a 5 overtime game. Like, that's just insane to think about. I mean, great play from both teams in that game. But as you mentioned, the Carolina Hurricanes completely dismantling the Rangers. I mean, bad move on the Rangers, I think, not playing any of their other goaltenders and sticking with Lundqvist until game 3. But, I mean, they look like a deadly team. They look like they could make some noise.
Like you said with Lundqvist, I think they might be holding on to him just for a little bit of nostalgia maybe, honoring their legend. But, I mean, at this point in his career, I think Shesterkin and Georgiev are better goalies. But if we're going to talk about delay games, we already have our second delayed game in the playoffs already, and we're only 2 days in. The Bruins and Canes game went for so long. I know it's shorter, but 2 overtimes, and the Islanders-Capitals game was delayed an hour. That will be starting in about 3 or so minutes. So our second delayed game already, a lot of overtime we've seen so far in this playoffs. If that is any indication of how these playoffs are going to go, boy, am I excited for these playoffs.
And the Avalanche start off their Cup quest today, too. They play the Red Hot Coyotes at 7 p.m. tonight, Eastern time. So definitely we got to keep eyes on those 2 games, Islanders game and Capitals. I think that could be a nice series. Avalanche, Coyotes, also a nice series. We're in for the best playoff hockey we've seen in a very long time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the playoff hockey, I mean, I just have so much fun when it comes around to playoff hockey time. I mean, there's nothing else like it. No other playoffs as exciting. So many upsets, so many great games. And, guys, it's been 1 day, and we've already seen some fantastic games and play from individual players. I mean, just incredible hockey all around.
Mm-hmm. And I also can't wait to see the Canadiens-Flyers game because that is the next 1 versus 12 or 8 seed game that we saw. Obviously, Vegas taking care of Chicago. I want to see if maybe the Canadiens can get the edge on the Flyers here in the early series. We'll have to see if the Canadiens can, overcome their obviously not great season. But Flyers, I think they're coming away with it. That is slotted at 8 p.m. Eastern today. Flyers have been one of the hottest teams in the league even before the restart. So a lot to watch out here for today. We've had 5 games, 1 down, 4 to go today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's looking like it's going to be a great season of playoff hockey. But when we get back, when coronavirus finally ends, which stadiums are a must visit in the sports world? We'll talk about it. Be right back. Welcome back to Sports Table Talk. We're going to be talking best stadiums throughout the entire sports world. If you want to get in on the conversation, our phone lines are open. You can call us at 1-800-NY-SPORTS if you want to join in, maybe talk some stadiums. I'm gonna start in baseball. I mean, Jack and Sam, I don't know about you guys, but I love Wrigley Field. I mean, such a classic stadium. Got to be one of the top stadiums to go to for a game in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, Wrigley Field is definitely up there for me. As a Mets fan, I really wanted to say Citi Field, but I just can't do it. Wrigley Field and Fenway Park, I think, are equal for me. So much history, so much, well, the Cubs didn't really win that much, but you get the point. A lot of iconic teams played there, a lot of iconic games played there. Another newer ballpark that I think could definitely be one of my favorites is AT&T Park out in San Francisco, the home of the San Francisco Giants, especially with the water down in right field. I think all three of those could definitely be great choices for best MLE stadium.
Yeah,
AT&T
absolutely. And then when you look at you mentioned Citi Field. I mean, absolutely. No disrespect to them, a great ballpark
Yeah.
to catch a game. I mean, great food there, great people there. I mean, they got a very great constructed stadium.
Yeah.
right.
No
And
disrespect to Citi Field.
I think City Field is a great stadium. However, for me, I'm going with a little bit more history side. I'm going Fenway Park. I've been
Yeah.
to Fenway and Wrigley, City Field, obviously. But Fenway just felt different. You know, you show up to Fenway, they close off every street within like 5 blocks of it, and then you go in. It's electric. You know, you show up to some baseball games, and maybe there's not a lot of fans. I went in like the middle of the season. They weren't even playing that good of a team, and it was electric. The vibe, everyone was into it. You obviously got the monster green wall that you got to get over. It's just a great historic game, historic stadium.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes me sad about how the way that New York City is positioned, that you can't have Yankee Stadium or Citi Field positioned right in the center. I mean, Wrigley and Fenway are directly in the center of, Boston, Chicago, respectively. It just makes it so cool. Cubstown is around there. You got, bars all around. And for Citi Field, you have McFadden's, like, near where, like, 3.5 people go to. I mean, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you look at Fenway Park, I mean, I haven't personally experienced it, but there was probably nothing like sitting up on that green monster and catching a game. I mean, probably such a magical experience, one of the best seats you could probably get in all the sports. So when we move to NBA, I mean, there's so many great stadiums. I'm going to have to go with MSG, but we actually have a caller. Keith and NY, what's up?
Hey guys, what's going on? Love this conversation. And I'm from New York. I'm a Yankee fan. I wear that like a badge of honor, but I will tell you that going to Fenway is one of the best experiences of my life. I went and got a private tour with my family, got the history lesson, got to sit in the seats, see the old bathrooms that they have, the old turnstiles that they have, all the rich tradition that's there. I'm a baseball purist, and I love old Yankee Stadium. New Yankee Stadium, it's all right. Citi Field is cool, but Shea Stadium, just there was something special about it. And Wrigley Field is absolutely awesome. But Fenway, even though I'm from New York, I got to give love to the people up in Boston. Fenway does it right.
No argument with that. I mean, such a classic stadium. And not only is it has so much history in the ballpark, it still keeps up with the newer stadiums today. I mean, such a greatly constructed park. I mean, all around, no argument there. One of the greatest stadiums in all of America.
And Ryan, like you were saying about the NBA with basketball, first of all, I agree 100% about Fenway. But first of all, with the NBA, it's got to be Madison Square Garden. It's just such a nice, clean stadium, and it's just a fantastic arena to go and catch a Knicks game. It's just a lot of fun. It's just a very good experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball, as they've nicknamed it. Another really nice stadium is down in South Beach, American Airlines Arena. I have some bias because when I was there a couple of years back, I went for an Eastern Conference Finals game with LeBron and Wade and Bosh. So, it was so nice to see that. But, I mean, with the new court, the new color scheme that the Miami Heat have going for them, the court's really nice. The fire coming out during introductions, I think it's one of the coolest stadiums I've been to.
Yeah, and obviously it's just great because it's right in the center of New York City. It's it's inside the culture of the city, and obviously the city's got a great culture. It's got a great vibe, and you feel that when you go into Madison Square Garden. It's just a fantastic time, and it'd probably be even better if the Knicks, were half decent and competing for a playoff spot. But as it is, it's such a fun, enjoyable experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gotta say, I mean, it's got to be a pretty nice stadium if you still want to go catch a Knicks game at this time. I mean,
Exactly.
But touching on another, the reimagining of the Garden recently, I mean, it's been very, very nice. I mean, such a great stadium to be at. again, the Mecca, I would say best stadium in all of basketball. But another great stadium is still in NY. Barclays Center, I love going there.
Great.
Great time. They just redid the court. Great colors on the court. Court looks very great. The concessions are really great. Just to be there, it's a real fun experience, and just more of like a deviation from MSG, which is more of like a professional, old, historic stadium.
Ryan, I'm going to have to strongly disagree with you there. I think Barclays Center is one of the worst stadiums I've ever been to. To watch a hockey game there or to watch a basketball game, you know, not every seat you can see from. The concessions, there's like a couple wing places, a steak sandwich, and a couple burgers. Barclays Center, it's small. It's in an awkward position in Brooklyn. There is not many things I like about the Barclays Center. Believe me, it's cool watching a Nets game there. They kicked the Islanders out. People didn't like going there so much for Islander games that they literally kicked the Islanders out and made them go to a new stadium. I think it is one of the worst places to watch a basketball game.
I can't say worse, but I do get the obstructed seats. You got to go looking for those good food places. They're not everywhere in Barclays. But
the only good thing is that there's a Shake Shack right around the corner.
Shake Shack is nice.
Go grab some Shake Shack.
Can't argue with that. But even if you don't want to go to Barclays Center, another great NBA stadium, TD Garden, not too far away. Another stadium nice. Like MSG with beautiful history, great architecture. Just another great all-around stadium in the NBA.
Yep. Now, another great stadium that has a lot of history in the NFL is Lambeau Field. And Lambeau Field is my pick for the best NFL stadium for a few reasons, and mainly its history. It's such a historic stadium. It's actually one of the only stadiums in all of sports that in the name it actually doesn't have a sponsor. So I find that very cool. It's very original to Curly Lambeau, the Packers legend head coach. And it's actually very cool because I'm not sure if you guys have been. I'm not sure if you know this about the stadium, but there actually aren't any seats. It's all benches all the way around in the stadium. It's just great. It's just a great experience. Obviously, the Packers being one of, if not the most historically rich franchises in the NFL, and you really feel that when you go.
I actually have a very interesting story. Of course, Lambeau Field, when I was there, it was one of the best stadiums I've ever been to. The history is so nice there. Another really good stadium is Heinz Field up in Pittsburgh. I got a private tour of that a couple of years back, also very nice. But back in 2012, when the MLB All-Star Game was in Kansas City, Kauffman Stadium and Arrowhead are actually in the same exact parking lot. And back in 2012, smaller Jack Stankey we bribed the security guard to go into Arrowhead Stadium. There was no grass on the field. It was all dirt. I used the bathroom there because there was no bathrooms going on in Kauffman Stadium. But, I'm telling you, Arrowhead is one of the better stadiums I've ever seen. It's electric there. You have the chants going on with all the chants. It's so nice. Such an electric place to watch a game. And now they're home to the reigning Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, I will admit, it's got to be the most electric and most hyped up stadium, and fans, when you go there on any given Sunday, I would imagine that I haven't been, but I would imagine that experience is incredible.
When it comes to electricity in the stadium, when it comes to NFL, I'm going to have to argue at that point. I got to go with CenturyLink with the Seahawks. They are known for the 12th man. Insane atmosphere if you're there. You could see it on TV. Such loud, great fans there. Can never go wrong with CenturyLink.
I believe they actually recorded a actual earthquake with the amount of noise that they did, if I'm correct. And they're crazy. Like you said, it's Arrowhead or CenturyLink for me, the most electric and hyped up crazy fans. So
yeah, absolutely. And when we get back, we'll talk some more football. But we're going to go more in depth into the NFL now. Such a wild season coming up. We'll talk about it. Stick around. Welcome back to Sports Table Talk. I'm Ryan Blake, joined by Jack Stankey and Sam Levine. And it's NFL season coming up real soon. We're going to talk rookies. Best picks for Rookie of the Year. We'll go with Jack first. What are you thinking?
In one of the most stacked draft classes, I think, of all time. So wide receiver deep, so running back deep. I'm going with the quarterback. First overall pick, Joe Burrow, will win Rookie of the Year. Stellar season at LSU. Will finally bring back a winning mentality to Cincinnati.
I'm going to go with none other than the LSU running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was such a great pass catcher at LSU out of the backfield. Now he's going into, and obviously Damian Williams opting out of the 2020 NFL season. So he's really the only starting caliber back in that backfield. So expect him to get a lot of touches. And also, now he's in probably the best passing offense in the entire NFL. So you know he's going to get that touches. And honestly, that's why I think Andy Reid and that Chiefs team drafted Edwards-Helaire for his pass catching abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I can completely see that pick. I mean, Jack said during one of our breaks, I mean, one of the top fantasy football players this year upcoming. I mean, but when it comes to Rookie of the Year, I'm going to have to go with one of the wide receivers. I mean, there's so many to choose from. Jack pointed to such a wide receiver stacked draft. I mean, I think Jerry Jeudy is really going to show up. I mean, CeeDee Lamb with Dallas, I think, could be big as long as Dak Prescott starts to show up in all those big games. I mean, I feel like CeeDee Lamb could be one of my top picks. I mean, I could definitely see Clyde Edwards-Helaire looking for a big rookie year from him. But I got to go with one of the wide receivers, and I think it's going to be CeeDee Lamb this year.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb, believe me, the Dallas Cowboys got an absolute steal with CeeDee Lamb going that late. You know, Henry Ruggs the third went to the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, he was the first wide receiver off the board. The second wide receiver off the board where I could see definitely winning Rookie of the Year is Jerry Jeudy of the Broncos. I'm a big believer in Drew Lock. I'm a big believer of that offense. Now, Cortland Sutton across from him now will be Jerry Jeudy. I think that team can definitely be good in a couple of years. And that's my other pick for Rookie of the Year if Joe Burrow doesn't win.
I for sure believe in Jerry Jeudy. I think Sutton and Jeudy, like you said, will make a very nice duo. Obviously, Jeudy working in the slot, Sutton out wide. I believe in Drew Lock as well. He showed me in his rookie year that he has, you know, what it takes to become a starting quarterback if he can develop a little bit. But getting him more weapons, it can't hurt. So Jeudy is going to have a good year. And obviously getting a very good, talented route runner for Drew Lock is only going to help him. So if Jeudy can get where he's supposed to be on time, expect him to get a lot of catches this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with that. But I'm not saying Rookie of the Year caliber, but a lot of these offensive linemen in this draft seem very promising to me. I mean, the Jets offensive lineman looked really promising. I mean, Browns are looking good. There's a lot of teams that really got some studs on the offensive line.
The offensive line was great, but what about those guys that the offensive line is going to have to protect? Those defensive tackles, Derek Brown and Javon Kinlaw, both went in the top 15. I think both will have very good NFL careers, and both are going to be day one starters, especially Derek Brown. I think Derek Brown is going to have a day one impact and be able to impact that Panthers defense and restore some of the youth and energy to their unit.
Oh, we're talking about defensive players now, believe me. Defensive players, you want to name? Isaiah Simmons, Arizona Cardinals. That team is going to make some noise in the NFC West for years to come. Isaiah Simmons can play every single position on defense. You know, at Clemson, he did that. I think if we're picking defensive players, he wins Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with that. I mean, great show today. A lot to watch tonight. NBA action, NHL action, some MLB games. We'll talk about it all tomorrow. I mean, that great show today, guys. Ryan Blake, joined by Jack Stankey and Sam Levine. We'll catch you next time. Have a great night.
See you.